So our first reading for this upcoming Sunday is from the book of Job. And in the entire 3-year cycle of the Sunday readings, we only read from Job 2 times. So you might not be too familiar with the story. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So Job begins with a terrible tragedy happening to this man named Job. Right? So he loses his family, loses all of his property, and he becomes very sick. As a matter of fact, in our first reading, we skip a verse that describes his skin condition. I guess the people who choose the passages we're going to read at Mass thought it was a little too graphic for us. But yeah, this terrible tragedy happens to Job. He's ill, loses his family, loses all his property. And then his friends, they come and they visit him. And like good friends, they blame it all on him. They say, Job, we know how God works. God, he blesses the people who act rightly, and he punishes the evildoers. So you must have done something evil in order to deserve this. But Job's not having any of it. And Job says, no, I know my life. I didn't sin. Your ideas are wrong, and I don't understand why this is happening. It doesn't make any sense. But then his friends insist. They're like, oh, no, we know God. You must have done something evil. But then Job says, no, I know myself, I didn't. And they argue back and forth for 35 chapters. At 35 chapters, it's the longest piece of ancient Hebrew poetry that we have. It's a long time that they argue back and forth. But then finally, what brings this huge argument to the conclusion is God intervenes. He comes to them, he speaks, and he finishes the argument. So that's the book of Job. Our particular passage that we're reading this upcoming Sunday is just Job talking about how he's miserable, about how his life has no meaning, no value, no purpose. So that's the first reading. Now our gospel is a continuation from last Sunday's gospel. Last Sunday, Jesus was in the synagogue. He taught with authority. He drove out the unclean spirit. This Sunday, he goes to the house of Simon and cures his mother-in-law. And then the entire town gathers outside the house and he heals them late into the night. And he gets up early in the morning, goes out, prays, and he moves on to the other towns. So in the first reading, we hear of Job's suffering, and we know that God is going to liberate him from it. And then in the gospel, Jesus comes and he heals the people of Capernaum. And so with these 2 readings together, it seems that the point of the readings is that God wants to save us from our suffering. God wants to relieve us of our affliction. And that's definitely true. But I think there's actually a deeper meaning to our readings for this upcoming Sunday. So why do I think that? So there's 3 reasons from the gospel. So reason number 1 is because Jesus goes out and prays. In the gospels, oftentimes when Jesus goes out and prays, it's because there's a tension about him being the Messiah. He goes out and he prays before going to the cross because he's afraid of it. And many other times when he goes out and prays, it's because people are confused about what it means for him to be the Messiah. Reason number 2 is that when Simon comes to Jesus, Simon says, everyone is looking for you. Looking, in the Greek, zetain. Whenever this verb is used in Mark, the people doing the looking have a bad reason for looking. It might be because they want to harm the people that they're looking for, or it might just be because they're confused about the identity of the people they're looking for. So reason number 2, looking, zetain. Okay, now reason number 3, there's more going on here than just healing, is because when Jesus drives out the spirits, he didn't permit them to speak because they knew him. And I think this is tied up with the other 2. It seems like Jesus didn't allow the spirits to speak because if they were to name him Messiah, the people wouldn't understand. They would get the wrong idea. Okay, so here are 3 reasons that there's more going on in these readings than just God wanting to heal us. But what is that more that's going on? Well, let's look back at Job. When God intervenes in the argument and puts it to an end, he doesn't say, the friends are right. He doesn't say, Job is right. Instead, he comes in and he totally changes what the argument is about. Instead of coming in and giving an answer, he questions Job. He says to Job, where were you when I founded the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determined its size, do you know? Who stretched out the measuring line for it? He also asks, have you entered into the sources of the sea or walked about in the depths of the abyss? Have the gates of death been shown to you, or have you seen the gates of darkness? So God, he doesn't interact with Job and the friends along their line of argument. He comes in with a completely new idea, this idea that, there's so many marvels in this world, marvels that God is responsible for. And just as we acknowledge these marvelous things, these things beyond our comprehension, so we can trust that even if we don't understand the suffering of the just, even if we don't understand why bad things happen to good people, we can trust that these things make sense to God, that God comprehends these things, and that God directs them for his purposes. We see this in the gospel too, that God's intervention is mysterious. It's something that we didn't expect. The entire first half of the Gospel of Mark, Jesus doesn't let anyone call him Messiah. He always quiets them. He says, you don't know what that means. But then finally, in chapter 8, the disciples call him Messiah. And he says, yes, I am. And he explains what that means. And Peter says, no. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not the Messiah. And Jesus must tell him, get thee behind me, Satan. And we see this in Capernaum too, that the people, they want healing, but they seek Jesus for the wrong reasons. They want healing on their own terms. And so Jesus goes on to the other villages. And so what does all this mean? Well, it means that Christ has the power to deliver us from evil. But the way he will do it probably isn't the way we expect. And so if we are the ones who tell Jesus what he can do for us and what he should do for us, then we will probably be disappointed. Jesus will go on to the other towns. But if we allow Jesus to do what he wants to for us, then we could become something beyond what we even imagine.